Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Masters on the topic of loving ourselves. This is part 3 of our 3-part series on the topic of loving ourselves. Everyone on this call is an enlightened master who agreed to participate in this conversation and share their wisdom and experiences on this most important topic. This series is up to look at loving ourselves from a higher perspective. You can seek out most of these masters participating in this series. They all have unique gifts and talents, and some of them offer their services. Please look them up so you may learn more about what they do. They are identified included with their websites in the comment section below. In part 1 of the 3-part series, we discussed what it means to love ourselves and why that is essential. In part 2, we discussed how to love ourselves. And so today, in part 3, we will discuss more on how to love ourselves and also sacred rituals that we either perform alone or we do with others that help us to expand our self-love. So let's get started. So stated in part 1, learning to love myself fully and unconditionally is not something that's always come easily to me. It's been a process and something I'm always continually expanding upon. So what are some of the sacred rituals that are around loving yourself? So is loving everything around us, is that a sacred ritual? Is self-care a sacred ritual? So fellow masters, I'm going to ask you to be sharing what some of those sacred rituals that you do towards loving yourself, and also what some maybe you've heard about that you don't specifically do that you know have worked for your clients or other masters perhaps. And one of the reasons, and of course feel free to offer anything else that has to do with how we learn to love ourselves or how we love ourselves. And one of the reasons the sacred rituals parts came up to me was because during a recent course that Sarah Landon of sarahlandon.com did on creating paradise on earth, she channeled where the council was responding to a question about not dragging limitations from 3D into paradise, into our heaven on earth. And they spoke at length about the answer, about letting go and loving ourselves. But I just want to read one brief part of what they said. They said, it's easy to let go. That's not who I am. It's not the truth of me. Come back into your acceptance for yourself and appreciation for yourself and love for yourself and celebrate who you are and celebrate how far you've come. If you would just take the time right now that you're spending trying to work through all your imperfections and past and disappointments and tragedies, and instead took that time to celebrate yourself, to throw parties to celebrate yourself with yourself or someone else, if you would hold ceremonies about your sacredness, if you hold creation and visioning sessions for yourself, you would so quickly be completely and totally in your wholeness and your completeness. Remember your perfection and how loved you are. And if you took that time that you're spending to find imperfection and analyze your lack of wholeness, retell the story of being unloved, and instead spent time on celebrating yourself, holding sacred ceremonies to honor yourself, and envisioning and creating yourself the way you want to be, you would come into absolute knowing of your worth and your magnificence and your brilliance. And in the realization of the truth of who you are, the past will be healed, and there will be no need to continue to recreate and revisit it and reassess and re-examine and cross-examine your experiences of the past. So I thought that was one thing, and when they, like I said, that was just a couple months ago when they had done that course on creating paradise on earth. And I thought it made me think, well, yeah, self-love is very important, and sacred rituals, they're stress and importance of that. So that's why I wanted to add that part of sacred rituals into what we're doing. So, all right, who wants to share first?
Well, I'll be happy to share. If I leave the, I've had 20 or 25 or 30 years of the ritual, a treat or a bubble bath or a self-care, and I've kind of fine-tuned it, or what I do today. And this is, my favorite one, what I'm doing today, and I'm calling it resonance. This comes from the work, and I really want to mention her name. Her name is Sarah Payton, And she's sort of like a neurologist, a researcher. It has to do with the brain. So this comes from her, but I'm only going to talk about a very sliver of it. It's something that I incorporated into my life, and it's called resonance. And this is what it's based on. And you'll resonate with this if you're a parent. But what it's sort of based on, or a way to illustrate this so you can clearly see it, is they did research and they did this study, and they showed like babies. And if you have a baby and you make let's say you pop a balloon or you make a noise, and they tested the babies, and what they realized was that when that happened, that if a parent or a caretaker was in the presence of that baby, and that baby is startled, and then the baby looks to its caretaker, if that caretaker then resonates, and how a mother does, you mock it back to so if the baby goes, oh, the mother goes, meaning I resonate, I see you, I reflect that back. I recognize that you're in distress or you're having a reaction. So I resonate with you. And then when the baby is resonated with, then it can be comforted or it can look for a different choice. And then the baby, and very, very quickly, so the babies who were frightened, but there was no caretaker, it took much longer for them to self-resonate, and to figure it out and calm themselves down, because it's the part of the brain that's in flight, fright. And so it just takes longer to deal with that. And then the one that took the longest, believe it or not, was when a baby was in the presence of the caretaker. The caretaker was actually there, but they would not resonate back. They would just be blank. And that really alarmed the baby, sent it into the longest stress. So that's the illustration, and that is the story. And the way I apply that is, this is the self-care and this is the love, is I offer myself resignation and to resonate with myself. And the phrase that I most often adopted or use is when I catch myself or I'm aware of a state of being, and the first thing I do is I say, of course you are. Of course you're mad, or of course you're upset, or of course you don't like that. I say, of course you are. And when I resonate with myself first, that just sets me up where then I have the ability to go on and have the awareness and regulate myself and make another choice to feel the empowerment and say, oh, okay, but I could do better, or I have another choice, or I learn from this. But the key is that resonating, choosing to resonate with myself and say, of course you feel that way, even if there's some kind of judgment, wrong, bad, that's not as good as you could be, or whatever. It's the very first offering of course you feel that way.
I love that, Sharon, because what you're doing is really, you're giving yourself that space first. You're not making yourself wrong. You're not judging yourself for having whatever feelings or reactions you have. You're loving yourself in spite of whatever somebody else might say is wrong. And you're giving yourself space to get to the allowing.
Just like you would do with a baby. You don't say, oh, you big dummy. That's just a balloon. Or, someone just slammed the door. Oh, that's not going to hurt you. Or, oh, how silly that, why do you have to need this toy? You've got 50 of, you don't say that to babies. You just don't say, you just go, oh, Or at least that's how I did with it didn't matter what they did. Even if my little boy hit the other little boy, I kind of went, ooh, what happened? To kind of check in and see how are you or what happened, and then followed up.
And you're also saying we should love ourselves as much as we would love a baby or a child.
Right, because that's the part that's in us, and it's the way to the technical definition, or neurology speaking, what it is. The technical definition is when you are in those tribal or those first, that's the part of the brain that I mentioned. It's the survival. Mm-hmm. It's fight, fright, fear, all that. So literally the rest of your brain and your access is cut off, because there's such emphasis on that, because you're needing to survive. Mm-hmm. And so you do not have access to source and reason. Oh, let's calm down. Let's think this through. You don't have access to that, because you're getting ready to freeze or fight, or, and so that's the technical definition. But that part of the brain, you can soothe it.
Mm-hmm. And I said, it gives you a gap, it gives you a second, gives you a space, lets you stop instead of going, keep going that way. And choose something else.
Yes.
Like self-love, yeah. That's awesome. Resonance. I'm going to remember that one. That's a little so that's a good tool.
Yeah.
So who else has some other either ways of yourself or some sacred ways that you want to share? Sacred rituals or ceremonies or...
Okay, I'm happy to share. But following on from what Sharon just said, I think that's lovely. It's simple but effective, and it also follows on from what I think we talked about in one of the other sessions about and I know that Sarah Landon has talked about this, about the observing your human and talking to your human. I really have taken that concept and run with it, because I find that really, really powerful. It's like Sandy just said, so we're talking to us like a child, and my human is like a child, and our humans are amazing because our humans are limited with their humanity, with their human senses, and it's this whole idea that we are the higher self. And I think we mentioned before about, we often say, I was talking to my higher self, whereas I think that's a massive leap. For me personally, when we're talking about self-love or just understanding, for me, it was a massive shift when I talk to my human as opposed to talk to my higher self. And that's self-love. I mean, that's self-love. And it's like you said, Sharon, it's that not judging. And I went through this summer with the grief I was experiencing. I just allowed my human to be human. We came here to have a feeling experience. And I guess it's like watching a child just express their emotions safely. And basically, like you would with a child, like you said, like with the baby, we're providing that space for them to express and to come to terms with everything. And that's what we're doing with ourselves, is just allowing our humans without judgment to be human, and it's all okay. It was just a massive shift to me. So I just wanted to say, Sharon, that was fantastic. That really resonated with me as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. But one of because you talk about, like sacred rituals or what have you, I remember also when hearing about the mastery side of things, that we actually, as you know, are the creators of our own reality, and we also get to put the meaning on it. So when it comes to these rituals, we can really do anything, because we get to choose to put the meaning on it. So we could do something as simple as, I don't know, just arranging flowers in a certain way or arranging our crystals in a certain way. And that to us means a self-love thing, or it means whatever we want it to mean, because we get to choose the meaning and we create it, which gives us power. Think how powerful we are when we can do that. You know, we can literally just place something somewhere or just do something and we choose to put the meaning on it. And that is my meaning of self-love. So we can make any ritual. But having said all of that, one of my favorite rituals was like self-massage. Like when I'm putting lotions on after a shower or something, this was really loving your body. I'm really into kind of loving the body, you know. People think that it's about, you know, oh, isn't my body lovely and gorgeous? No, it's like, you know, I'm like, my body has been serving me for all these years, and isn't it time that I gave some gratitude? You know, and I would massage into every part of my body and just focus on it and give it thanks and gratitude. And it's like, even if it doesn't look perfect in today's world, it's like, you know, my ankles have held me up for all these years, you know, and I've got a thing about, you know, my knees. I mean, they get me up and down all the time. It's like, they're amazing. And I can go through my whole body just absolutely loving every single part of my body because it's served me so well and is continuing to do so. I mean, it's really a miracle, isn't it? And I massage myself, and well, I don't now, not so much, but that was one of my rituals on my journey. But now as a yogi, I mean, I'm on my yoga mat, and that's the perfect place to carry on that self-love. You know, I think that's a ritual as well, in a way, is that you do your postures or you do your meditation or you do whatever it is, and you're just totally focusing on loving yourself. So that's a pretty good ritual as well, I think.
I love all those, because you're all like honoring who you are, and you're right, this is our vehicle that's taken us all these places. You know, when I put lotion on, I think sometimes, oh, I love my body, thank you, body. But I love the detail of what you do. I'm gonna start doing that too, because you know, I always put on lotion after. I always put on lotion. It's something I do daily, right? So why not use that time to
and especially
further and deeper.
Especially if there's a part of you that is I call it needing a little bit more love, but most people my age would refer to it as, oh, my knees aren't as good as they used to be. So like, especially the way I teach yoga, it's like, you know, if you can get to kiss your knees, and I kiss my knees all the time because they need a little bit more love. That's how I phrase it. I don't a lot of people separate themselves from the part of their body that is aching or not serving them or what have you. And then they start cursing that part of the body. And I think to myself, oh my goodness, if you cursed me, I wouldn't want to work for you. So you can't curse it. You have to love it. You know, you can only, like the child again, you kiss it better. You don't curse it better. And so with all this realization, I can spend a lot of time literally loving my body. And just one other thing, sorry, I don't want to hog the time, but
you're fine.
If you look at, I'm sure you're aware of Masaru Emoto's work with water crystals, and the beautiful purity and harmony of the love and appreciation molecules. And if we're 70% water, I'm very aware of that. And so I'm also feeling like I'm beautifying myself from the inside, because I'm giving so much love and appreciation and gratitude to the cells of my body that they can't help but become more pure and harmonious, huh?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Deborah. I think Blissa wanted to say something, right?
Well, yes, pretty much everything Deborah just said, it very much is aligned with my own personal practices. And I think I say this every time, talk to your cells. For me, that's a big part of my self-love practice, is to really honor, acknowledge my cells. And it also has assisted me in really moving my consciousness around my observer experience more to that my body is the container that I get to experience being on planet Earth, and then being compassionate and loving and grateful for my body, and then really coming from that higher perspective and how I engage life. For me, I have a ritual that's pretty much daily, and it includes grounding meditation. I use the Stargate, which comes from a group. It's another group that I'm involved in, a Stargate community. It's like a sacred geometry portal that you can call in, and helps to anchor and hold higher frequencies as you do the meditation work. I also do prayers every day for humanity, the planet, that everyone on the planet knows they're connected to the earth, and for all loved ones and different groups. But as I do those prayers, what it really is like just feeling the love inside myself for that person or the whomever it is, and just really calling in that relationship or their relationships in their life to be in harmony and balance, and to feel that love. So it's like sending love to multitudes of people every day. And I do feel like in many ways that's part of my self-love ritual. Putting something on my body, the oil or the lotion as well. But something that came up for me today, specifically that I wanted to speak to, was the understanding, like for us, I believe maybe everyone on this call, it's not such a stretch to be in that place of self-love and to make it a priority and to have it be a part of your everyday experience. And we probably all have several different ways that we engage that. And I'm here visiting. I told you guys a couple weeks ago, my dad died, and I've been in Sandpoint, which is where I lived for a long time. And I have a friend here who's suicidal, and I spent a little bit of time with him. And this morning I was with him, and I was just thinking of how do we access self-love from that place of not even wanting to live in your body any longer, so it's like it came to me that was something that needed to just be brought. And there was these pieces, like in my meditation, it was like, go outside. Like if you couldn't go outside, because being outside, like right now it's just dumping snow here, it's incredibly beautiful, giant flakes. It's been snowing here though for like 6 weeks, a while. Or if you can't bring yourself, like sometimes we can be in such a place that we don't even have the energy or the sense to do something or to change the scenery, but to do a grounding meditation and just feel yourself connect with the earth, or turn off all the distractions and just notice what's there inside yourself, or maybe engage with some art of some sort. Like if, for instance, he's a musician, pick up your guitar or draw, like use an adult coloring book. And then there was another, ask for support. So that's one way that I feel grateful that he was willing to ask for support. Like, could you just come be with me? There's so many, I think, because we live in the world that we're living in, where we've spent so much time focusing on having a higher perspective and living in a higher frequency, it almost is so far from my reality anyway, to not want to be in my body, to not want to experience the gift of this life and not love my body. Even when I'm incredibly sad, I've cried a lot lately, more than normal. I always feel the gift of my life and the gratitude of that. But there were times in my life that that wasn't the case. And I was just called to really bring that peace for us, for whoever is listening, you know, for whoever you are, that you might know that we, all of us have spent a lot of time really loving ourselves and moving past the judgments, moving into a space of really knowing and honoring ourselves and our bodies. And that can be a process for us as humans. And some people, I'm sure, just have it. It just feels good to be alive. And so it is. And for some, it's overwhelming and frightening.
I'm so glad you brought that up too, Blissa. You're right, because we are to a point, but we probably all didn't even start. You know, we were more in our human part than the higher dimension that we try to live and vibrate with. And you're so right. There's so many people that are starting. They're like, well, how do I even take, you know, how do I do anything? How to get started? And it is a process. It is a step by step. And I like what Sharon said too. Is like, when you start feeling it, even before you take a step to do something, stop first, resonate and say, it's okay. It's okay you feel this way. And why wouldn't you feel this way in the situation? And then take that gap, that space to stop and then move and do something. Because you're right, there's so many simple things you can do to start. And no one would expect somebody to go from where you're not wanting even to be in your body to go where you're just completely, totally, without question, loving yourself the next minute. And we're not even suggesting it. So I'm so glad that you brought that part up. I think that's very, very important.
It just seems so clear, like for me to, as I was relating with this friend, I realized what I would say like if I hadn't had that perspective this morning, might be so far, so distant from what someone may be experiencing who's really looking for, how do I find that love for myself? You know, and so it's good just to say, oh wait, there's this whole spectrum. And one thing I always notice that it's the simplest things that seem to be the most effective in just bringing me back. But the 3 slow breaths.
I think she froze for a second, but we'll give her a second to come back. But you can probably hear me right now, Blissa, but I know you'll be coming back. She doesn't have great internet at her where she is visiting her family. But it's right, those 3 deep breaths. I agree. That's where I go back to a lot. 3 slow, deep breaths. That's a good place to start. It's the best way to start, really. It's the easiest place to start. And I agree with what she said too about like, what do you know, because we all have people in our lives that are at different stages, and they don't understand. Maybe, I think she's probably signing off and coming back in. They don't understand that, you know, you just don't jump to this point. And also when she was saying too about holding the vibration, yeah, we're really, you know, I think I would probably say pretty much everyone on this call, we would like to hold that higher vibration all day long. We don't necessarily hold that all day long. And Deborah, who has a YouTube channel, and she does a free weekly and monthly tarot readings, which is fantastic. But I know she just did one this weekend, and she talked about holding your higher vibration all the time, not just when you're in meditation, not just when they take those 3 breaths. And so, yeah, I think that's a goal that a lot of us want to get to. Maybe some of us are further along than some people listening, but I do think that's a worthwhile goal to get to. And I think knowing just that it's important to love yourself and starting there is a good step. Looks like she's coming back on. Does anybody else want to add anything before she gets back on about that? I know, Ahmet, in your first part one, you actually got a channel call from someone who had decided to depart from the human, and that fortunately you read the channel for us here, which was just beautiful, about how important it is to love yourself, and they weren't able to access that while they were still in human form.
Yeah, thank you. If someone decides to depart, and then right after they did, and they regret immediately, immediately. So that person, I think, is very lucky to know Blissa at this point.
I think so too. Probably as anybody in her life, including us.
Absolutely. To help him or help her out. So hopefully she's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
I have a sacred ritual about loving ourselves. You know, when we say our self, actually consists of many things: our body, our soul, our spirit, our higher self, our mind, our thoughts. So there's so many of them. But if we are in the beginning of the spiritual path, my suggestion is to start loving our bodies first. Because if we are in the 3D world, we rely on the 5 senses. So we can see our bodies. So this is a very good thing. We touch our bodies. So it's better if we start with loving our bodies. When we start loving our bodies, I have a technique. Now, actually, let's do a small practice, all of us, if you do not mind. So if you like to unmute yourself, that would be great, because I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, thank you. Okay, so if I tell you, I love you all, Sandra, how do you feel that?
If you say that you love us all, it feels lovely. It feels warm. It feels, yeah, like somebody loves me.
Great. And Deborah, how do you feel?
Yeah, warm. Yeah, it does bring a warmth, doesn't it? And a comfort. And I also kind of felt a little bit like, well, yeah, of course you do.
Thank you.
Because we love you so much.
Thank you. And Blissa, you're next.
I felt a sensation in my heart that just sort of spread out through my chest, and it just felt very comforting and reciprocal. I felt the reciprocation that I also feel, the love for you and everyone else.
Great, thank you. And you, down?
I felt total acceptance. Just a beautiful, peaceful feeling that was going back and forth between my heart and yours with pure acceptance.
Thank you. And you, Sharon?
Well, I think because you emphasize the body, and because we're working here, how unique to have a screen. So when you said that, I was able to see my image, and what I did was I smiled from ear to ear. I just grinned. It's a big smile. And I'm not so sure that I would have known that. because how often someone say, and you see your reflection about your action, but it caught my eye because I actually moved and I looked at myself, because it just caught my eye because there was movement, but it was automatic grinning from ear to ear. I just smiled, big smile.
Thank you. So I love all of the answers, but if I instead of saying I love you all, but if I ask you individually, Sandy, I love you, I appreciate you, I am very happy to be your friend, and it's an honor to be with your friend, and I appreciate you very much. And now how you feel?
Well, it's interesting because I felt really great when you said it. And at first, when you said, what if I said it to you? And I thought, well, if I was in a room with other people, my first response, and this is a very human, not positive response, I was like, well, what about everybody else? I don't want them to get their feelings hurt. It was like my first thought was everyone, not me, which is a very human thing. But then when you spoke, I thought, well, you're saying as if you'd say it to me without everyone else around. I was like, it just made me feel like, that I was seen, that someone appreciated me. It almost brings tears to your eyes because you feel like you're seen. It feels kind. Not just that it feels kind, but one of the things that always moves me to tears is kindness more than anything else. So acts of kindness that, there's some disaster somewhere and you see all the strangers, like that brings me to tears. So that's how I was feeling. I was feeling brought to tears by your kindness.
Thank you.
It was
and my point is,
yes, it was a higher level.
Thank you.
Even than the group. Yeah.
Thank you. That's my point. When I meditate, instead of telling I love you, my body, this is actually aligns with Deborah's technique. I go very specific to recognize and appreciate my organs and part of my bodies. So when you see it as a body, okay, it works very good. So when I told you that I love you all, it affects also good effects. But something is more powerful to really spend time. For example, you just tell your eyes, my eyes, I love you, and spend time with your eyes a little bit. Like I talked to Sandy and try to talk to our eyes, maybe listen to our eyes, maybe we can channel, maybe eyes wanna say something or share something with us. That's my technique. I take my time to go pick specific organs or part of my body and appreciate them and spend time with them. So after one or two or maybe the third organs, your ego gives up. It bothers me anymore because you're talking to your organs. You said, oh, okay, let him go. It's no big deal. He's talking to his organs. So you are free of your ego and you are in pure consciousness. So, and then your vibration levels goes very high. You vibrate very high. Your frequency is very high. So, and then you start receiving light codes and activations and everything. Yeah, they're all our friends. So it's nice to spend time with our friends. Like, if you call your friend to have a coffee with you, it will make your relation much stronger. Same thing I do with my organs. So that's my sacred technique that I would like to share.
Wow, what a powerful sort of illustration and a powerful technique. Wow.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you on that.
Can I jump in here a little bit, because I wanted to kind of connect something that Blissa said and something that Ahmet said kind of together, because of course we were talking about people that maybe have not been practicing the self-love, and like Blissa says, people that are kind of needing a different kind of stage to it. But this looking in the eyes, this is what made me think about it, Ahmed, because, you know, if you can look at yourself in the mirror, you know, mirror work, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you love you and use your name. And I remember when I first tried this, I think it must have been Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I remember first trying to tell myself that I loved myself, and I just wanted to laugh. Because obviously I wasn't resonating with the frequency of the self-love. And then I remember also another day I would look and my bottom lip would just go, and I just wanted to cry. And obviously, because I realized that I didn't love myself, you know, and there are times when a lot of people would cringe as well. And it was interesting because when I was a school teacher, we had the little mirrors to do the symmetry. The little young kids were learning symmetry, and so they had these little mirrors. And I noticed that the kids were like looking at themselves in it and laughing. And it was really interesting because some of them were like gazing at themselves really lovingly, and there were other kids that couldn't even look themselves in the eye. And I was just really aware. I was just really surprised at the different responses. But now when I look back, I realize it's the different levels of self-love, you know, because if you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to do that. So if anyone's struggling with that, I love the word willing. And you can then say, I'm willing to love myself. Or, you know, I'm willing to love my body. You know, it's really good to put the willing in, because people wouldn't be listening to this if they weren't willing to access self-love. Like Blissa's friend that just said, you know, just help me, something, asking for help, you know. So willing's a powerful one. Just to be willing to love the parts of your body.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so true. It's such a great sort of, it can be a transition step. You can always say it. It doesn't have to be just transition, but if you can't say it, it's a great transition. And when you were saying that, I was thinking about it. You were talking about the kids look in the mirror. I'm sure there's many people listening to this and that may listen to this and may be saying to themselves, well, it's easy for so-and-so to love themselves. It's so easy for this person to love herself. And, you know, because there's a lot of human conditioning and environmental conditioning and how you're raised and so many things that go into how sometimes easy it is for you to do that or maybe not easy. We do have access to it though, every one of us, but it is for those that haven't been on the path, you know, take the first step, do what Blissa said, take some deep breaths. Like you said, Deborah, be willing to do it because it is worth it and you are worth it. So it's great. I know, Dawn, you haven't, I know, and Blissa, you may want to finish some more about what you were saying earlier. I know that you were off for a minute, so.
I do want to say something on what you just said, because I feel like that's a big piece, is this, the inherent worthiness of each one of us journey. A big part of my journey is to, even though I knew the divine was within me, that for such a long time, there was this part of me that was always trying to be worthy or good enough. And really we just being born on this planet, we are worthy. And that's a big piece for us. I think each and every one of us can probably relate to some aspect of that, but to just remind ourselves that we are worthy. We're worthy. We're breathing, and that's it. We don't need to prove it. It's kind of putting that judgment down and just knowing the gift of being here. But my connection's not that good here.
Yeah, I know, because you're visiting where your family is, but that's good. You're here, thank goodness. We're happy for you here. So.
I'm glad to be here.
So you're right, that worthiness. We're worthy. Just if you're here, just by sake of being here, you're worthy. You're not worthy because you match some idealized version of what somebody else out there said made of you. You're just inherently worthy because you're here. And that's the, yeah. Learning to allow that to come in and to receive that. I think you want to say something, Don. I can tell because their mutes are off, because usually I'll know who wants to say something next. And Don's is off. So Don, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, there's so much to this self-love that it is so deep. I've learned more in the last year and a half, 2 years, and it's more than just accepting your body. It's accepting every part of you and to realize worthiness, acceptance, receiving. I think that's a huge part of self-love because most of us have been spending our whole lives just giving and giving and not receiving. We are worthy of it. And some of the rituals that I have enjoyed are the meditations with allowing the light to go into my entire body and filling every cell and feeling that love from the light going into every cell and then spreading that to cover the entire earth, encompassing all human beings, all animals, and going out into the universe and feeling that love. I think that adds to self-love and the peace. Like when Ahmet said, I love you, that that feeling, I think that just adds to all of that.
Beautiful. Beautifully said, Don. That reminds me too sometimes because I think sometimes like when I walk around that everywhere I go I'm sparkling. I'm spreading fairy dust sparkle. So, but I actually did a channeling for myself. I asked the fairies. I know you channel the fairies, many different galactic entities, but when you said the fairies, I decided last time I'm going to ask the fairies for a message this time, and they're all around me, but they're also sprinkling that fairy dust on me, and then it comes through me out to where I spread it. And that's a matter of, I'm like, oh yeah, I receive. And when I think about that, that's part of one of my sacred rituals too. I was thinking about receiving that fairy dust and then giving it away. So anyway, I thought as somebody, so we're at our time. I thought, gosh, just thank y'all so much. I think I always learn something from y'all every day that we're together. That's true, but I learned so much today from each and every one of you. So thank you. Does anyone have anything they want to add before we conclude for today? Okay, then we're going to conclude our part 3 of our 3-part period on loving selves. So we'll have other conversations coming up. I think we're going to be doing one on focus, which is going to be a really fun one about focusing on what you focus on is what you attract, just in a nutshell. One on being present. We're always talking about this is your moment, being present. How do you be present? And I think just based on what Don brought up, then I got an inkling that we're going to be doing something on how to receive, because I've noticed a lot of people around me don't know how to receive. So even from yourself. So thank you, everyone. And we'll look forward to our next series.